I am running a Paris Marathon on Sunday and really hoping to raise 10,000 euros for Max and research into Alexander disease in 1 week. Today, I want to introduce you to Thomas and Steph, Max's mom and dad. They're here to introduce you to Max, tell you a little bit more about Alexander disease, where any money that we can donate will go. And yeah, over to you guys. I just want to say I miss you guys so much. We miss having you here in Singapore. How is life in the US?
Surprisingly, we managed to settle in quite well. One of the reasons why we came here was for Max to have access to the specialists that he needs for his disease, and that was luckily a very smooth ride to achieve. And now he has like a fantastic care team looking after him and working with him, and also, although we miss Singapore a lot and you guys, not being in the heat all the time is making a difference for all of us, for sure.
Awesome. Hi, Max. You say hi?
Hi.
So tell us a little bit about Max.
When Max was about 7 months old, he had, in the middle of the night, he had a seizure, and we rushed to the hospital, and they did all sorts of tests to make sure that it wasn't a head trauma, and they figured out that there was some sort of white matter on the brain. Then we had an MRI, and that MRI confirmed that, and then they immediately jumped to the conclusion that we need to do a gene test, and 2 weeks later, we got the really shocking diagnosis that it was Alexander disease. Number one, it took us a while to get his seizures under control, so we were trying around different seizure medication doses, and luckily with the help of our doctors in Singapore, were absolutely amazing, by the way, we managed to get the seizures under control. And once that happened, things started to look slightly better. However, this is such a rare disease that there is currently just no cure or treatment for him, so we can only treat the symptoms that are coming. What he's been doing is, because one of the symptoms is a developmental delay, is trying to help him to get a bit of independence. Bless you.
Bless you.
So, for example, he is, even though almost 2, he just can't walk and he can't stand. And we've been working on this very actively with his therapist, and he is making immensely progress, but it's just not 100% there yet. As you can see, we're still holding him quite a bit. Number 2, we also like chewing and swallowing is something that's just a bit harder for kids with his disease. And we're also working with feeding therapists that it's just easier and that he can enjoy his food. And I think one of the things that he really struggles is he refuses to drink from a cup. It's hard to say whether it's something coming from the brain or he just doesn't make the connections. But in October last year, he got a feeding tube placed on his little belly. And that helps us immensely to make sure he gets all the medication and enough liquids during the day. And that really improved his weight, his energy, everything around his sleep. And ever since that was a good decision, even though emotional, but yeah. And apart from being cranky just now, he's doing fine.
He never seems cranky to me. He's always got like the biggest smile on his face, and is just always such like a happy little boy. What's he into at the moment? Is it kind of cars, trucks? Is he building? What's he playing with?
Boxes and boxes and boxes. We're doing a bit of like a Jenga with them, and he loves just pushing them on the ground or just climbing on them.
Music.
He loves music. So singing and instruments. He loves the drums. But again, I think drums and boxes is it's all about, having your hands on something.
Having hands on something and making lots of noise for mum and dad as well.
We sometimes call him the mayor because we go to music class and he needs to obviously crawl. There's lots of different mats where respectively the kids hang out, and he has to go to every single kid in the music class, and he just sort of crawls past, waves and looks if everyone's okay, and shakes some hands.
Awesome. It's so fun. And so tell us why you're raising money for obviously for Max and for Alexander disease.
At the moment, like Stephanie mentioned, Alexander disease has no cure and no approved treatment at all. So when Max was diagnosed, we were actually told that 7:30 a.m. in the morning by a geneticist that Max has Alexander disease. And we're like, okay, what does that mean? They're like, well, there's no cure, there's no treatment. And his life expectancy is 5 years, maybe 10. No one really knows, probably 5. And obviously that hits pretty hard, and sort of shatters your entire world at this point in time. And then we started reading up on the disease and what it does, and it's neurodegenerative. But then when you start talking to scientists, you realize that there are actually potentially treatments and potential cures that are either in the works or have been in the works or just had to be stopped or haven't even been pursued because there's no funding. And finding that out, I think maybe a month or two after we found out about the diagnosis, that there's actually scientists who have some pretty solid ideas as to what could help, but just no grants, no funding, made us go like, how is that possible, basically? And so we started a fundraiser, started talking to scientists, connecting our scientists to each other, and are trying to mobilize, I guess, behind some of these experiments to get some of these potential treatments and potentially even a gene therapy cure into the clinic to not just help Max, but also all the other kids with Alexander disease for which there's currently just otherwise no hope, really.
I think our fundraiser really has the goal of 2 things. One, obviously, selfishly, we want to find a cure for Max. But on the other hand, having this conversation with your doctor that, your child will die very soon and there's nothing you can do. We don't want anyone to go through that kind of conversation. Obviously, we cannot, cure everything, but at least for Alexander disease, no parent should have this kind of conversation and feel that hopeless.
And so how have you been spending the money that's been raised so far?
We've listed a number of projects on the GoFundMe, and one of which is a gene therapy that's been developed. They would have stopped work on this end of the year last year because someone needs to pay for a postdoc to actually stand in a lab and do this. And so we've been able to fund this year effectively for the postdoc to continue that. And they've made some tremendous progress. It's already seems to be working in the preclinical trials, and they just need a little bit more time to push this forward.
So about $75,000 went to that research project.
Correct. And then there is another project which is in Australia, University of Western Australia, and they have a program where the university matches any donations, and that gets a scholarship for a PhD focused on Alexander disease. And so that's been the second one. We've transferred right around Christmas, and the PhD is literally starting, I think, next week. So there's going to be a dedicated PhD working on Alexander disease, testing existing medications on whether they could make a difference in Alexander disease, with some very promising things on the way. And then the last one, which we are happy to support, is at the University of Wisconsin. There's Professor Tracy Hagman, and she's her lab is fully dedicated to Alexander disease, and they have a number of things that they found out that could potentially help slow it down, or has potential to even potentially stop it, but no funds. And so we've transferred some of the money, not enough for them to start potentially some they call it proof of concept experiments. So just to see if this could work, and if it does, to either, get more public funding, apply for grants, or get interest from potentially companies that want to develop this further. But there are a few potential things in the pipeline, but just absolutely no funds to run these experiments effectively. So that's where the other part has been going, and where more would go if
so that's also the focus of the next wave of whatever donations are coming in right now would go straight to Tracy Hagman and her team, because otherwise she would need to again pause her work and spend hours and months to try and raise funds and not keep working on it. And considering that we are working against a clock, we just really want to drive this forward as much as possible.
Absolutely. It's great that there's there are people working on this out there. It's frustrating that they're not getting enough funding, and maybe this isn't getting enough visibility.
So with rare diseases, it's usually really coming down to the parents to really drive any kind of really promising research forward, because while experts are working on it, they just don't feel the urgency that parents do. And we see this with a lot of other diseases as well that are now getting into, being available to the public and just getting FDA approved, that most of them are really driven by parents who have kids with that same disease.
And so what can we do to help? How can we help?
We've been super grateful for our community, for our friends, our family, to, of course, donate, but also to do their own little fundraisers. Like my brother was having his 40th birthday recently, and he was sort of asking people, instead of presents, why don't you support Max and the research to find a trial? For you to run a marathon and do it in Max's name is amazing.
Thank you.
And at the end of the day, it's as silly as it sounds when it comes down to it, it is about any cent, any dollar, any euro makes a massive difference.
Well, just spreading the word, that also makes a huge difference.
The share button.
Yeah.
It's an honor, and I just hope that we can raise lots of money over the next week and just raise lots of awareness as well. So to anybody watching, Paris Marathon is going to be on the 7th of April, which means we have got 1 week to raise 10,000 euros for Max and research into Alexander disease. Please donate anything that you can, and comment, like, share this post. Let's get the algorithms to pick this up and spread this as far as we can, so that we can hit our goal.